The arrival. The Valenthy Dominion had conquered 17 star systems in the past century alone. Their empire stretched across the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, a testament to military superiority that had remained unchallenged for 3,000 years. Their ships were legends. Their warriors were trained from birth. Their technology had been refined through countless wars against civilizations that no longer existed to tell their stories. So when the Dominion's reconnaissance probes discovered Earth, a small blue world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, the response from High Command was predictable. They dispatched 300 warships under the command of Fleet Admiral Torvith Krell, a veteran who had personally overseen the subjugation of 12 worlds. The mission briefing was simple: establish dominance, extract submission, integrate the planet into the Dominion's expanding territory. Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Sovereign, reviewing the intelligence reports with mild interest. The humans of Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light communication, though they still lacked proper FTL travel. Their weapons were primitive: chemical rockets, nuclear devices, crude energy weapons that would barely scratch Dominion shielding. Their largest spacecraft were pathetic things, barely capable of reaching their own moon with any efficiency. "Another primitive world," remarked Commander Sirith, Krell's second-in-command. "I estimate full surrender within 2 hours of our arrival." Krell nodded. "Standard protocol. We demonstrate power, they submit, we establish governance. The humans will join the Dominion like all the others." He paused, examining an image of Earth transmitted by the probes. "Though I admit, it's a beautiful world. Perhaps we'll establish it as a resort colony for high-ranking officials." The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, their arrival deliberately calculated to be detected immediately. It was always better when the primitives had time to panic, to understand the futility of resistance. The psychological impact shortened conflicts and reduced casualties on both sides. Within minutes, every detection system on Earth lit up with warnings. 300 massive warships, each one larger than the biggest structure humanity had ever built, hung in space like predatory birds circling prey. Their hulls gleamed with the dark metallic sheen of quantum-hardened alloys. Energy signatures pulsed from their weapon arrays, each ship carrying enough firepower to glass an entire continent. The international emergency channels exploded with activity. World leaders scrambled to crisis rooms. Military commanders activated defense protocols that everyone knew were woefully inadequate. Scientists analyzed the sensor data with growing dread, calculating and recalculating the enormous energy readings, hoping their instruments were malfunctioning. But amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. Earth did not descend into panic. There was fear, certainly, but it was tempered by something else. A strange calm settled over the major population centers. People gathered in public squares, watching the news broadcasts together. Families held each other close. And everywhere, on every continent, in every language, the same question was asked: what will we do? Admiral Krell initiated the standard first contact protocol. The Dominion's translators were sophisticated enough to decode any language within minutes of exposure. He composed his message carefully, the same message he had delivered to dozens of worlds before. "People of Earth. I am Fleet Admiral Torvith Krell of the Valenthy Dominion. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. This is not a negotiation. You will surrender all military assets, dismantle your governments, and submit to Dominion authority. You have 12 hours to comply. Resistance will result in the systematic destruction of your major population centers. Choose wisely." The message was broadcast on every frequency, in every language. Translation algorithms ensured that every human on Earth heard Krell's ultimatum in their native tongue. Then the Dominion fleet waited, as they always did, for the inevitable groveling response, the desperate pleas for mercy, the chaos of a world tearing itself apart as different factions debated surrender versus suicidal resistance. But the response that came 6 hours later was nothing like what Krell expected. A single transmission originated from a location identified as Geneva, Switzerland. The voice was calm, measured, belonging to someone identified as Secretary General Chen of something called the United Nations. There was no panic in her voice. No desperation. Just a strange, sad certainty. Admiral Krell. We have received your message and discussed it among our people. We cannot and will not surrender. Earth has endured much throughout its history. We have survived extinction events, plagues, wars, and disasters that reshaped our continents. We have learned, slowly and painfully, that freedom is not something that can be surrendered, not even to save our lives. We ask that you leave our system peacefully. We do not wish for conflict. But we will not submit. Krell stared at the communications console in disbelief. In his 3 decades of military service, he had never encountered such foolishness. Commander Sirith looked equally stunned. They refuse? Sirith said. But they must see our fleet. They must understand they cannot possibly win. Krell felt a mixture of annoyance and something uncomfortably close to pity. They're primitives. They don't understand what they're facing. They still think courage and determination matter against superior technology. He activated his command interface. Prepare demonstration strike. Target their largest city, this Tokyo. Evacuate it first. We'll give them 1 hour warning, then reduce a single city block to rubble. That usually clarifies the situation. The orders were transmitted. Dominion tactical crews locked targeting systems onto precise coordinates in Tokyo. Warning broadcasts were sent, giving civilians time to flee. The Dominion, for all its ruthlessness, preferred subjugation to genocide. Dead populations couldn't serve the Empire. But as the targeting systems engaged, something impossible happened. Every weapons array on every ship in the fleet suddenly went offline. Not damaged, not malfunctioning, just offline, as if someone had flipped a switch. Tactical displays flickered and reset. Weapon officers frantically ran diagnostics, finding nothing wrong with their systems, yet nothing would activate. Report. Krell barked, his comm finally cracking. Unknown, sir, the weapons officer responded, his voice tight with confusion. All offensive systems are non-responsive. Defensive shields are operational, engines are operational, but we cannot fire any weapons. Before Krell could respond, a new transmission came from Earth. The same calm voice, Secretary General Chen, spoke again. Admiral Krell. We detected your targeting systems locking onto Tokyo. We have disabled your weapons as a precautionary measure. We do not wish to harm you, but we cannot allow you to harm us. Please, for the last time, leave our system peacefully. Do not make us show you what we are truly capable of. The bridge of the Eternal Sovereign fell silent. Every officer stared at their consoles, trying to process what they were hearing. A primitive civilization had just disabled the weapons of the most powerful fleet in the Dominion's armada. Impossible. Completely impossible. Krell felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Not fear, not yet, but the cold realization that his fundamental understanding of the situation was wrong. These humans were not primitive. They were something else entirely. Something that had been hiding beneath a facade of backwardness. The demonstration. The assault ships launched from the Dominion fleet's hangar bays like a swarm of metallic insects, 500 small but heavily armored craft designed for boarding actions and planetary assault. Each carried a squad of Dominion shock troops, warriors enhanced with cybernetic implants and equipped with personal weapons that had cut through the defenses of 100 worlds. If the main fleet's weapons wouldn't function, Krell would take Earth's leadership hostage and force compliance through more direct means. The assault ships accelerated toward Earth, their pilots confident and eager. Many were young warriors seeking their first real combat experience, viewing this mission as an easy opportunity to earn honor. They had trained against simulations of primitive civilizations countless times. They knew the patterns: initial resistance, quickly crushed, followed by surrender and occupation. This would be no different. But as the assault wave crossed the orbital boundary of Earth's moon, something extraordinary happened. 3 ships appeared between the assault force and Earth. Not hundreds of ships, not dozens, just 3. They were sleek vessels, smaller than Dominion cruisers but larger than the assault craft, with hulls that seemed to shimmer with a strange iridescence, as if they existed slightly out of phase with normal space. No visible weapons. No obvious armor plating. They simply appeared, without any detectable hyperspace signature, without any warning from the Dominion's sophisticated sensor arrays. The lead assault ship pilot opened a channel to the fleet. "Sir, we have unknown vessels blocking our approach. 3 ships. They're not taking any hostile action, just hovering there." "Orders." Krell studied the tactical display with growing unease. His sensors could barely get a reading on the human vessels. They registered on some wavelengths but not others, as if they were ghosts flickering between reality and something else. "Maintain course. If they don't move, go around them. They're significantly outnumbered." The assault wave adjusted trajectory, splitting into 3 groups to bypass the human ships. But the moment they moved, the human vessels moved as well, instantaneously. No acceleration, no energy buildup, no maneuvering thrusters firing. They simply relocated to new blocking positions faster than Dominion sensors could track. One moment they were in one location, the next moment they were somewhere else entirely, always perfectly positioned to intercept. "This is impossible," whispered the helmsman aboard the Eternal Sovereign. "Nothing moves like that. It violates every principle of inertial physics." One of the assault pilots, frustrated by the bizarre dancing match, made a decision. He armed his ship's forward cannon and fired a burst directly at the nearest human vessel. The plasma bolts crossed the distance in microseconds, enough concentrated energy to vaporize an armored tank. The plasma struck the human ship and simply stopped. Not absorbed, not deflected, stopped. The energy hung in space for a moment, a frozen sculpture of green fire suspended impossibly in vacuum, then dissipated harmlessly as if it had never existed. The human ship remained undamaged, hadn't moved, hadn't activated any visible shielding. Then it responded. A pulse of light emerged from the human vessel, so brief that most sensors barely registered it. The pulse touched the assault ship that had fired, and the ship ceased to exist. Not destroyed, erased. One moment it occupied space, filled with systems and soldiers and weapons. The next moment there was nothing. No debris field, no explosion, no energy signature. Just empty space where a ship had been seconds before. 499 assault ships remained. Their pilots stared at their sensors in shock, desperately trying to understand what had just happened to their companion. The fleet's tactical analysts scrambled to review the data, finding nothing that made sense. Matter didn't just vanish. Energy had to go somewhere. Everything they thought they understood about the universe demanded that destruction leave evidence. Another assault ship fired, either in panic or fury. Another pulse of light. Another ship erased from existence. Then another. And another. The human vessels moved through the assault wave like death itself, each gentle pulse of light removing another Dominion ship from reality. There was no dramatic battle, no exchanges of fire, no desperate maneuvering. Just methodical, efficient elimination. The assault wave broke and scattered, pilots desperately trying to retreat back to the main fleet. But distance provided no safety. The human ships moved faster than thought, positioning themselves throughout the fleeing craft, those strange pulses of light reaching out again and again. In 7 minutes, all 500 assault ships ceased to exist. 5,000 Dominion soldiers, the pride of the Empire's military, removed from the universe without even understanding what had killed them. The bridge of the Eternal Sovereign was absolute chaos. Officers shouted conflicting reports. Tactical displays struggled to track what was happening. Commander Sirith stood frozen at her station, her face pale beneath her blue-tinted skin. Krell gripped his command chair so hard that the armrests cracked under his augmented strength. All ships, full combat readiness, Krell ordered, his voice steady despite the horror of what he'd just witnessed. Restore weapon systems by any means necessary. If they want war, the Dominion will give them war. For another 10 minutes, the technical crews worked frantically while the 3 human ships held position near Earth's moon, making no aggressive moves, simply waiting. Every backup system was engaged, every emergency protocol activated. And finally, miraculously, the weapons came back online. Every ship in the fleet suddenly had full weapons capability restored, as if the last hour of malfunction had been nothing but a collective hallucination. Weapons systems operational, the weapons officer reported, relief evident in his voice. All batteries responding normally. Krell didn't hesitate. Full fleet assault. Target those 3 ships. Maximum firepower. Erase them. 299 Dominion warships opened fire simultaneously. Enough concentrated energy to reduce a small moon to vapor filled the space between the fleet and Earth. Lance batteries, plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, gravity mines, every weapon in the Dominion's arsenal unleashed at once. It was the kind of overwhelming firepower that had shattered planetary defenses and broken entire civilizations. The weapon's fire reached the 3 human ships and stopped, just as the earlier plasma bolt had stopped. A wall of frozen destruction hung in space, thousands of weapons rendered motionless, their energy suspended in violation of every law of thermodynamics. The display was beautiful in a terrible way, a light show of humanity's impending doom transformed into abstract art. Then the frozen weapons fire reversed direction. Every plasma bolt, every torpedo, every lance beam turned around and accelerated back toward the ships that had fired them. The Dominion fleet had seconds to react, engaging defensive shields at maximum power, launching countermeasures, attempting evasive maneuvers. But there was no escaping their own weapons. The fleet's fire control systems had been perfect, every shot precisely targeted. Now that precision was turned against them. The first wave of returned fire struck the Dominion fleet, and ships began to die. Shields that were designed to stop external attacks were not calibrated to stop the specific energy signatures of their own weapons. Dominion warships exploded in brilliant flashes of light as their own torpedoes struck home. Others simply crumpled as their own gravity mines activated at point-blank range, crushing hulls designed for void warfare but not for the localized singularities meant to trap enemy vessels. 30 ships were destroyed in the first 5 seconds. Then 40 more. The 3 human vessels began to move forward, those strange pulses of light reaching out with increasing frequency. Each pulse touched a Dominion ship, and each touched ship vanished just as the assault craft had vanished, erased from reality without ceremony or explanation. Retreat! Krell finally shouted, his pride shattered by the impossibility unfolding before him. All ships, emergency jump. Get us out of this system. But the hyperspace drives wouldn't engage. The same invisible force that had disabled their weapons now prevented their escape. The Dominion fleet was trapped, held in place by technology so far beyond their understanding that they might as well have been children throwing rocks at a thunderstorm. The 3 human ships moved through the fleet like surgeons, those pulses of light touching ship after ship with terrible precision. Krell watched his tactical display as the fleet's numbers dropped. 250 ships. 200. 150. The Eternal Sovereign shuddered as one of the human vessels approached, that iridescent hull reflecting the light of burning Dominion warships. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The human ships halted their attack with 46 Dominion vessels remaining. The pulses of light ceased. The invisible force holding the fleet in place released. Hyperspace drives came back online. Weapon systems deactivated again, but this time the ships themselves remained undamaged. A transmission came from Earth, the same calm voice that had spoken before. Admiral Krell. We have demonstrated what we are capable of. 253 of your ships are gone. We could remove the rest just as easily. But we don't want to. We never wanted this. We asked you to leave peacefully. You chose violence. Now you understand the price of that choice. There was a pause, and when Secretary General Chen spoke again, there was genuine sadness in her voice. Take your surviving ships and go home. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them that Earth wants nothing but to be left alone. Tell them that if they return, if any civilization returns with hostile intent, we will not show mercy a second time. Go. And never come back. The warning. The hyperspace jump back to Dominion space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence aboard the 46 surviving ships. 3 weeks of officers staring at empty stations where friends and comrades had once worked. 3 weeks of warriors who had never known defeat trying to process what had happened at Earth. Admiral Krell spent those weeks in his quarters, reviewing the sensor data over and over, searching for something that would make sense of the encounter. The technology the humans had displayed was beyond anything in Dominion records, beyond anything the ancient civilizations had possessed before the Dominion absorbed them. Ships that moved without inertia. Weapons that erased matter from existence. Defenses that could freeze energy itself and redirect it with perfect accuracy. But the most terrifying part wasn't the technology. It was the restraint. The humans could have destroyed the entire fleet in minutes. They had proven that conclusively. Yet they had stopped. They had deliberately spared 46 ships and nearly 30,000 lives. That meant they had never been fighting for survival. They had been making a point, delivering a lesson, and ensuring that survivors existed to carry their warning back to the Empire. When the surviving fleet emerged at the edge of Dominion space, they found a reception committee waiting. News of the disaster had traveled faster than the ships themselves, carried by automated probes that had witnessed the battle and jumped ahead to report. The Dominion High Council had assembled at the primary military station, waiting to hear Admiral Krell's account personally. Krell stood before the council chamber, his uniform bearing the scars of his defeat, his pride in ruins. The 7 council members sat in their elevated positions, faces carefully neutral, waiting for his report. These were beings who had ruled an empire for centuries, who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Nothing should have surprised them. The humans of Earth possess technology we cannot comprehend, Krell began, his voice hollow. They disabled our weapons without touching our ships. They erased our assault wave from existence, no debris, no energy signatures, no evidence they had ever existed. When we finally managed to fire upon them, they stopped our weapons in space and turned them back against us. He paused, forcing himself to continue. In less than 15 minutes, they eliminated 253 warships. Then they stopped. They deliberately spared the rest of us and ordered us to leave with a warning. Counselor Vethiz, the eldest of the council, leaned forward. His species had lifespans measured in millennia, and his eyes held the weight of ages. You're saying this primitive world, this Earth we detected barely a decade ago, possesses technology superior to our own? Not superior, Counselor, Krell said quietly. Beyond. As far beyond us as we are beyond Stone Age tribes. We were completely helpless before them. If they had chosen to pursue us, if they had wanted to destroy the Dominion itself, I believe they could have done so. The council chamber fell silent. Counselor Drath, the military strategist, finally spoke. Your sensor data has been reviewed. Our top scientists cannot explain what occurred. The energy signatures make no sense. Matter cannot simply cease to exist. Energy cannot be frozen in space. Yet the evidence is undeniable. She fixed. Krell did understand. The Dominion's power was built on the perception of invincibility. For 3,000 years, no one had successfully resisted them. That perception kept hundreds of worlds in line, prevented rebellions, maintained order. Now that perception was shattered. If Earth could defeat them, perhaps others could too. Perhaps the Dominion wasn't as unstoppable as everyone believed. Over the following months, the consequences rippled across the galaxy. The Dominion attempted to suppress the information, but it was impossible to hide the loss of over 200 warships. Stories spread from world to world, growing with each retelling. Earth became legendary, a mysterious planet of incredible power that had humiliated the greatest empire in the sector. Other civilizations took notice. The Karathi Federation, longtime rivals of the Dominion, sent covert diplomatic overtures toward Earth, hoping to establish contact with this new power. The ancient assemblage, a coalition of elder races that had remained neutral for millennia, debated whether humanity represented a threat or an opportunity. Smaller nations that had lived in fear of Dominion expansion suddenly felt emboldened, their defiance growing. But Earth itself remained quiet. No human ships ventured beyond their solar system. No diplomatic envoys were sent to other worlds. The humans simply returned to their lives, as if the battle had been nothing more than an inconvenient interruption. When other civilizations attempted contact, they received polite but firm responses. Earth was not interested in galactic politics, not interested in alliances or trade agreements, not interested in expansion. They wanted only to be left alone to develop at their own pace. This behavior baffled the galactic community. Every civilization that developed advanced technology eventually reached outward, driven by curiosity or ambition or the need for resources. But humanity seemed content in their single solar system, focused on their own affairs, ignoring the vast galaxy spread before them. 5 years after the incident, a gathering was held at the Neutral Conclave, a diplomatic station where representatives from dozens of civilizations met to discuss matters of mutual concern. The primary topic was, inevitably, Earth. Ambassador Threx of the Karathi Federation addressed the assembly. We must accept a new reality. Humanity possesses technology that makes them, potentially, the most powerful civilization in known space. Yet they show no interest in using that power. The question is, should we fear them or court them? Representative Vorn of the Coalition Worlds responded. Fear them. Absolutely fear them. A civilization that powerful, choosing isolation. They're either planning something, or they're dangerous in ways we cannot predict. We should establish protocols, defensive pacts, contingencies in case they ever decide to expand. But it was Ambassador Selt of the assemblage who provided the most insightful analysis. Her species was among the oldest in the galaxy, and their perspective was measured in eons rather than centuries. You all misunderstand humanity's position. They didn't defeat the Dominion to prove their power. They did it to be left alone. Think about what that means. They developed technology capable of defeating the galaxy's strongest military, not for conquest, not for expansion, but simply to ensure their own peace and autonomy. She paused, letting her words sink in. Earth is not a threat. Earth is a warning. They've shown us what they can do, and then they've chosen not to do it. They could have pursued the Dominion fleet, could have demanded tribute, could have established themselves as the new dominant power. Instead, they went home. They chose isolation over empire. That choice tells us more about humanity than any battle could. But her words, wise as they were, could not ease the fear that had settled over the galactic community. Because everyone understood the unspoken implication, Earth was peaceful now, content in isolation, wanting nothing more than to be left to their own devices. But someday, perhaps in a century or perhaps in a millennium, humanity might look outward. They might decide that isolation was no longer sufficient. They might finally bring their incomprehensible technology and their strange restraint into the broader galaxy. And when that day came, everything would change. Back on Earth, Secretary General Chen stood in her office, looking up at the night sky through the window. The same stars that had terrified humanity just years before now seemed peaceful, distant, no longer threatening. The alien fleet had come, had been turned away, and life had returned to normal remarkably quickly. People had jobs to work, families to raise, lives to live. The galaxy's politics seemed very far away and utterly unimportant. Her assistant entered quietly. Ma'am, we've received another diplomatic inquiry. The Karathi Federation is requesting a formal meeting to discuss potential alliance. Chen smiled tiredly. Send the standard response. Thank them for their interest. Politely decline. Remind them that Earth's policy remains unchanged, we wish only to be left in peace. They won't stop asking, her assistant noted. None of them will. We've shown them what we're capable of. They'll always wonder what else we're hiding, what else we can do. Let them wonder, Chen replied. The greatest defense we have isn't our technology. It's their uncertainty. As long as they don't know the full extent of our capabilities, as long as they fear what we might do, they'll leave us alone. That's all we've ever wanted. She turned back to the window, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was rebuilding, reassessing, learning to live with the knowledge that they weren't invincible. Other civilizations were forming new alliances, new defensive pacts, all centered around the question of what to do about Earth. Fear and speculation rippled across the galaxy, reshaping politics and military doctrine. And Earth, the small blue world that had started it all, simply continued on its quiet path. Humanity had spoken its piece, had made its declaration clear. The message had been received across 1,000 worlds, in 100 languages, by countless species. Leave us alone. We want no part of your empires, your wars, your politics. We wish you no harm. But if you threaten us, if you force us to act, you will learn what true power looks like. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth had earned its peace. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient civilizations whispered a new truth that would echo for generations to come. Never provoke humanity. Never force them to show their full strength. Because the day the humans finally decide to truly engage with the galaxy, to bring their full attention and capabilities to bear on the cosmic stage, the old order will end and something entirely new will begin. Until that day came, the galaxy would watch. And wait. And wonder.